Well, I am the queen of technical difficulties because right now my computer is frozen and there we go. And I just shot this episode and my audio was off. So I'm a little discombobulated right now, but we're going to dive right into it. The topic of this week is going to be Israel. And I came across an article from last week that I was completely unaware of. And if anybody else here has talked about it, I apologize for repeating myself. But the Israeli Knesset passed a law mandating 5 years in jail for the denial of the October 7th massacre. So not up to 5 years, 5 years in jail. This is extremely alarming. I'm not going to go through the whole entire article, but it's modeled after the 1986 law banning Holocaust denial. And you know, it says anybody minimizing it or denying it or celebrating Hamas, you know, that's what they're going to be targeting, but it's vague. And this was the most alarming statement in the article of the Times of Israel. The State of Israel today said in a loud and clear voice, the denial of the atrocities of October 7th will not pass in silence, neither in Knesset, nor in the street, nor in the world. You're going to tell me what I can and can't say over here in the United States? I don't think so. Anyone who tries to deny Hamas's heinous crimes is an active partner in spreading lies and incitement that undermine the foundations of our society. Okay, so now you're implementing your will on other countries. Get the F out of here. Now, I'm not a supporter of Hamas, but I'm well aware that they are a creation of Israel. All you have to do is follow the money from years ago. And Israel clearly allowed it to happen. It was a stand down. Iron Dome, my ass. Come on. Your Iron Dome didn't work with parachuters or paragliders? Give me a break. And at the same time that this is all happening, Trump signs an executive order targeting pro-Palestinian activists. This just happened 2 days ago. The order asks agencies to explore ways to deport activists, including students with visas who engaged in protests. College campuses are a breeding ground for leftist policies and protests. So everything else is going to be able to be protests, but Israel can't. The order is targeting non-U.S. citizens, so that's what it's doing now, and will deport them, but it's going to quickly lead to these types of protests just not being allowed on college campuses at all, because Trump's also threatened to take away accreditation of these colleges if they allow it, which is complete insanity to me. Plus, last week he proposed just to clean out the whole Gaza Strip of Palestinians by moving them to other countries. His comments sparked immediate condemnation and accusations that he was essentially calling for ethnic cleansing. I have to agree. I have to agree with that. During his campaign, Trump vowed to deport pro-Hamas students who are in the U.S. on visas. On his first day in office, he signed an executive order that said the U.S. must ensure that admitted aliens and aliens otherwise already present in the U.S. do not bear hostile attitudes towards its citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles. So what if, like, what's going to happen if a student's on a visa, they're pro-Palestine, and they're just having a debate or an argument with a pro-Israel or Jewish student? Are they going to be kicked out of college just for their opinion? This is the United States, and even if you're not a U.S. citizen, I believe in freedom of speech across the board. Freedom of speech is not complicated. The only reason somebody should be silenced is if they are trying to incite violence. If they say, I'm going to hurt or kill you, absolutely, they deserve to be deported. Or, violating property, if you spray paint your college or whatever, that's grounds for deportation. But for speaking your mind, this is insane. So it's happening at the same time this stuff is happening in Israel, and Israel and the United States are one and the same. This is complete proof of that. So we're going to dive into some of the history of Israel and the facts. Israel claims they're God's people, but there's a 2012 Johns Hopkins study that shows Ashkenazi Jews are not Semitic at all, and they are of Turkish Khazarian descent and converted to Judaism sometime around the 8th century. So most Israelis are European. Sephardics, that's a different story. But Israel, in my opinion, is not a specific place on a map. It's an amalgamation of ancient deities from neighboring civilizations. So I talked about, I think it was not last episode, the episode before, about planetary worship and religion. And Israel, from my studies, is a conglomeration of Isis, being the moon god, Ra, representing the sun god, and El, representing the supreme god, or Saturn. And here's a clip from an atlas in 1926 that shows Israel is not on the map. It's Palestine.
Found World Atlas, okay, was made in 1926. Where is it? And 1926 dated, right here. And if you open it and look for the country of Palestine here, it was in 33, or Israel in 1926. What is it right here? Oh, it's Palestine. I'm sorry, it's not Israel. 1926.
So why did Jews pick to settle in Palestine, now Israel? Why did they pick to settle there? It has to do with trade routes and banking and the financial system throughout the entire world. And I'm always of the mind to pay credit where credit is due, and the late Jordan Maxwell speaks on this topic better than anybody else, in my opinion. So let's show the clip of Jordan Maxwell and his thoughts on the formation of Israel.
The state of Israel is actually connected to America in a very arcane and secret way. So they are, the state of Israel is connected to the American federal system. It's very interesting. That's why America sends billions and billions and billions of dollars. Quite literally, I've heard the figure per year, something like $17 billion a year to the state of Israel. Incredible amounts of money. Why? There's something else going on here, and they haven't told you the whole story. If you were looking down from a satellite, looking down onto the earth, or even higher out than a satellite would be, you would see that the largest single landmass on the Earth is from Russia, from the northeast tip of Russia, all the way across to central West Africa, to the West African coast. Then from England, England, all the way across to India. And you crisscross the largest single landmass on the earth. That cross comes right through the city of Jerusalem. That's where it crosses. And so the old ancient Phoenician Canaanites, being the bankers, they said, if you're coming through town to do business, Jack, you're going to pay us up front. And so whoever controls Jerusalem controls the flow of oil, drugs, all kinds of products, the flow of gold, diamonds, all the valuable things in the world goes through Jerusalem. That's why it's the holy city. Money, international, monetary world situation set up so that all money, all flowing of business, commerce goes through Jerusalem. That's the name of the tomb. And that's why Jerusalem is so important to the American people. Now, you've got to give the people a reason why Israel is so important. Now, we know that Israel is very important because of strategically where it sits on the trade routes to control the flow of oil, drugs, diamonds, and a lot of drugs in Israel, going through Israel. Major movements of illicit narcotics and drugs through Israel. And diamonds, gold, money, etc., etc. But you've got to give the people who are going to go over there and lose their lives and give their sons in war, you've got to give them a reason. So we tell them that it's religious. It's the Lord's chosen people, the Lord's people. And the Lord himself has chosen Israel. And we give them a line. You'd be surprised what Americans love. They love that kind of stuff. And so we tell them, it's the Lord's will. And the Lord Jesus was there, and all the great prophets and all of that. And so we have to protect that little country, Israel, because it's the Lord's will. So I believe that all of these things which are happening right now in the Middle East there are many factors involved, obviously. It's not just oil. It's not just money. Those are the cards on the table. When you're laying out the game and you're going to play a game, a high-stakes game, say in Las Vegas, where hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars are laying on the table, and you're playing a high-stakes game, you're going to have the cards you've got that you're playing. Well, one of the cards that's being used in this high-stakes game is, of course, oil. One of them is, of course, drugs. Drugs are very big business in the Middle East and in Europe, and so I feel that the drugs are one card, oil is a second card, the control of money, banking, fraternities, controlling the flow of commerce and business in the world, that's another card on the table. But above the cards are the players only using the cards. And I think the players in this world game that's being laid out for us now are guided not by the cards. They're guided by something else. There's something else going on here. And it has to do with secret societies and ancient religions.
So Jordan mentions drugs, and when my brother was in Afghanistan in the military, he was a Marine, and he got back. He told me about the poppy fields, and that was one of the main reasons that they were there, was actually for drugs. And, to this day, you still rarely hear that ever talked about. Everybody was sort of under the impression that it was oil, but it was more than oil. it was drugs too. And it's an interesting story about my brother. He since has converted to Islam. He's Muslim, and it's because he saw we were over there for the wrong reasons, and through his spiritual journey, he studied a number of different religions when he was going through his transformation, and he ended up liking the Islamic faith. And I think a lot of it had to do with guilt, from knowing that we were there for the wrong reasons. His story is extremely interesting, and I'd love to get him on. He's sort of a private person, but he could speak on this topic extensively. What a lot of people don't know, too, is that there were many locations throughout the world that were set to be a Jewish homeland, and one of them was Uganda. Another one was actually Texas, but there's plenty of information on the internet about the Uganda scheme. So it was in 1903 that there was a plan to give a portion of the East Africa Protectorate to the Jewish people as a homeland. The offer was first made by Joseph Chamberlain to Theodore Herzl, who's the father of modern Zionism. And he offered 5,000 square miles of the Mao escarpment, not Mao like M-A-O, Mao, M-A-U, in what is today Kenya. The offer was a response to pogroms in Russia, and it was hoped the area could be a refuge from persecution for the Jewish people. I've also heard that Alaska was another place that was considered. The idea was brought to the World Zionist Organization's Sixth Zionist Congress in 1903. A fierce debate ensued. The African land was described as an antechamber to the Holy Land, but other groups felt that accepting the offer would make it more difficult to establish a Jewish state in Palestine in Ottoman Syria, particularly a part of Jerusalem. Before the vote on the matter, the Russian delegation stormed out in opposition. In the end, the motion to consider the plan passed by 295 to 177. Then, the next year, a three-man delegation was sent to inspect the plateau. Its high elevation gave it a temperate climate, making it suitable for European settlement. However, the observers found a dangerous land filled with lions and other creatures. Duh, it's Africa. Moreover, it was populated by a large number of Maasai people who did not seem at all amenable to an influx of people coming in from Europe. Okay, well, fair enough. But there were plenty of places in the world that were up for consideration for a Jewish homeland until they reached deciding on Palestine. So after receiving this report, Congress decided in 1905 to politely decline the British offer. Some Jews who viewed this as a mistake formed the Jewish Territorial Organization with the aim of establishing a Jewish state anywhere. So then, cut to 1917, and we have the Balfour Declaration. This was a statement issued by the British government expressing support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. So finally, after World War II, the Zionist movement was perceived by the world to be legitimate because of the Holocaust. And the Jews had already started to move to Palestine after the Balfour Declaration, but in small numbers. And more Jews started moving to Palestine after World War II. The Palestinians actually welcomed them and saw them as allies because of the Crusades. A lot of times they were even invited to live with them. Jews were invited into the Palestinians' homes. And there's actually the story of Muhammad Hadid. I normally don't follow celebrity culture or anything like that. But his story is interesting because he and his family invited Jews to live with them in Palestine only to be kicked out of their own home. And that story is true. So people slammed the Hadids as anti-Semitic, but this is what happened. So then the UN voted to give a large piece of Palestine to the Jews. Everything was fine. Like the Palestinians were fine with the Jews having a portion of land to themselves. But the vote gave Israel about 55% of the land, and it was a Jewish-only state, and then 45% to the Palestinians. This is where the tricky part comes in, because Palestinians are Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, but the Christians and Muslims didn't have their own state. So it would have maybe worked if the Jews had theirs, the Christians had theirs, and the Muslims had theirs. It may have worked if it was done that way, but it wasn't. And so in 1948, this is when Israel invaded, and they were much more equipped for war. The Palestinians, their equipment was not set up for war, and that's sort of when the downward spiral began for them. After 1948, Israel basically owned 78% of the land, and obviously it keeps expanding today into the Greater Israel Project. And I have mentioned the Greater Israel Project a few times on social media, and there are people out there, Zionists, who say that it doesn't exist. I mean, they wear the patch, the Greater Israel patch on their military garb. I think it does exist. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about Benjamin Netanyahu, but his real last name is Milikowski, and that's a Polish last name, and ironically that's Javier Milei's real last name too, so there's debate on whether they're related or not. It appears that it's likely that they are through their fathers, I believe. It reminds me of Justin Trudeau and the Fidel Castro thing. Like, they look exactly alike. There's no way that that's not his father. But we don't know for sure, right? So what is all of this conflict really about? Well, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in East Jerusalem is considered a holy site and Temple Mount to the Jews. But from my studies, what a temple actually is the human body. It's not, I don't even believe the biblical temple is actually, like, it's not even a place. It's your body. That's just my opinion. And ironically, Trump rolling out Operation Warp Speed, at minimum, it seems like if it wasn't the mark itself, it certainly seems like a precursor to it. And all of this cancer mRNA that is going to be rolled out, it fits the markings of the mark to a T. And most of Trump's supporters are Christian. How do you not see this? How do you not see this? And him rolling it out again. Like, how many times do you have to learn? And another thing that Christians are naive about is, they're actually pushing and helping in certain ways to make the Jewish Messiah come. Like, cattle ranchers in Texas are breeding these red heifers in order to bring in this Messiah and take over Al-Aqsa Mosque. So all of these, like, Bible-banging people who are pro-Israel don't realize that their Messiah is likely the Christian Antichrist. And it seems like Trump and Musk have a direct role in this. Whether they're the Antichrist or not, I don't know. I sort of lean towards AI being the Antichrist because I do believe in Christ consciousness. And And what would be the opposite of that? What would be the opposite of an organic human in higher states of consciousness? Well, it would be a synthetic consciousness, which would be artificial intelligence. But I mean, there for a while, I thought Elon was the Antichrist. I still think he might be. Trump might be. They certainly have the qualities that the Antichrist is supposed to have. So this clip is from a few months ago. This is Trump saying, it sounds like he's saying, I'm not a Christian, and you won't have to vote anymore. So what, you're the last president? And then there's that book about the last president and Barron Trump. I mean, I think they're telling you. Now, I don't know. I've listened to it 100 times. I don't know for sure that he's saying I'm not a Christian, but it does sound like he is. I lean towards him saying that. So let's show that clip.
Again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have.
So Trump's also talking about bringing back the death penalty, and there's talk that the reason he's doing that is linked to the Noahide laws, which I mentioned last week at the end of the episode. And I mentioned the beheading of those who do not abide by the Noahide laws, and some people think that's why he's bringing back the death penalty. So let's go into Elon a little bit and the meaning of his name. I found a clip, it was 4 years ago, might have even been more than 4 years ago now, but I found the clip like when nobody had seen it, and you may have seen it at this point because it's been lingering around for a while now, but it's still never caught traction the way that I thought it was going to, and it's Elon Musk's nanny saying that his real name then, when she was his nanny, was El Elyon. El Elyon is Jewish for the God Most High. Elyon is a common topic of scholarly debate, sometimes interpreted as equal to the Abrahamic God, and otherwise theorized as a reference to a separate deity of its own kind, potentially above that of Yahweh. So that's what we're dealing with here, people. Okay. Now, everybody has different interpretations on who Yahweh really is. I mean, I've come to the conclusion that a murderous, bloodthirsty God like that is not the real God, and it's probably Satan. And it seems like Yahweh was actually a physical being too, so that wouldn't be God. I didn't mention it in the last episode, but during the inauguration, Elon gives the Roman salute, or what appears to be almost like the Sieg Heil salute. And my theory is that he did that because he wants people to think that he's the opposite of an Israel bootlicker. Like, what a better way to make normies think, oh, he's a Nazi, than to do that. So I think that was a complete publicity stunt because he is the bootlicker of Israel, and it appears to be the opposite when he does a gesture like that. So back to Elon's nanny. She basically says that he is going to present the mark of the beast, and she was directly told that by people who were close to him when she was his nanny. So let's watch that clip.
God bless you. Hi. God bless you. I'm Shalom Girl on YouTube. I love Jesus Christ. He saved me. I want to tell you something. I'm an old lady, kind of. I'm 55. I was born in San Francisco in 1965. When I was a girl, I was in San Francisco. I was procured and sent to work for a family. There were 3 generations. There was a boy, the boy's mother, and the boy's grandfather. They were coming from Africa. They were white as me. I thought they'd be black. They were coming from Africa. And because of something the boy did, I never told what he did. The boy did something very dark when he was very little. And I was just coming to know Jesus. And Jesus saved me. And anyway, the boy did something very dark. And I never told what he did. And then one day I asked someone in the circle, Imelda, Joaquin's mother, I asked Imelda, I said, is he the Antichrist? I was 13 years old. She didn't even blink. She said, no, but he will present the mark. And when you see him do that, the Antichrist will take the stage. So, now here we are, 40 years later. Boom, that boy is the star of the world. He's the king of the world, but Jesus Christ is the king of my heart. Okay. The boy's name then was El Elyon. It's changed over time. But we're 40 years later, and I see that boy everywhere, and the world adores him, but he's the king of Babylon. And I'm going to call you out, choose you this day whom you will serve. Be it God, serve him. Be it the king of Babylon, serve him.
So what do you guys think? Do you think she's telling the truth? There's another video of her. I'm not going to bombard you with so many videos, but there's another video of her, and maybe I'll show it in the next episode or a future episode, where she talks about him opening up a portal. It gets pretty crazy. But I do tend to believe her that she was actually his nanny and that she was told this. It certainly seems like that's what's coming to fruition. And I actually reached out to her a few months ago for an interview, and I never heard back, but maybe I'll try again. She would be really interesting to talk to. So back to Trump. A few days ago, he exited the World Health Organization, and now he's talking about re-entering it again. What kind of clown show is this? They'd have to clean it up. I think that this is all just pure theater, personally, to make his supporters believe that he's monitoring the World Health Organization, which is a complete crock of shit. President Donald Trump said he was open to potentially rejoining the World Health Organization just days after he signed an executive order that withdrew the U.S. from the international group. During a rally at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, the president told those in attendance that it was unfair a country like China, with a population much greater than the U.S., was only paying a fraction of what the U.S. was paying annually to the WHO. So he's making it about money, but it's, I mean, we are under NGO control, as far as I'm concerned, with organizations like World Health Organization, the UN, and stuff. They're going to do whatever they want. They run the show. Trump withdrew the U.S. from the WHO in an executive order issued hours after he was sworn into office last week. The president cited reasons such as WHO's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like, you rolled out Operation Warp Speed, okay? You know, in 2020, I mentioned it before, I did vote for Trump, and I gave him, I thought, you know, like, maybe he really doesn't know what's going on with this vaccine, and give him a few months, maybe he'll come around and say that this was the wrong thing to do. Well, that never happened, and cut to 4 years later, now he's rolling out cancer mRNA. Obviously, he didn't learn his lesson. He's beholden to these organizations. So this is all theater as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure we will rejoin the WHO. The president's complaints about the U.S. paying too much to the WHO mirror his complaints about U.S. participation in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But we all know that really, I think the focus is shifting away from the NATO stuff, and I actually do think that he's going to solve some of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but then we're going to be at odds with Iran, and then Iran is linked to Russia and China, and we all know the whole goal has always been for the East to take over the West. So that's what's going to probably end up playing out. And all of this talk about Canada becoming the 51st state and Greenland and stuff is all just moving towards a one world government, you know, diminishing borders. That's really where all of this is going. So all of these little moving parts like the WHO and NATO and all this stuff, it's to confuse people from the bigger picture, I think. So Trump also is signing an executive order barring transgender people from military service. And the woke agenda is being dismantled on purpose because everybody got so sick of it, and it was shoved down everybody's throats so hard to make the masses, the American masses, swing back in the opposite direction, the classic age-old pendulum theory. And now there are plenty of people who were on the side of woke who are beginning to migrate centrist or even right-leaning now. And that's being done on purpose because the right is now the Trojan horse. You know, the left was more blatant about their tyrannical moves, especially during COVID. But now the right is kind of blind to the fact that this technocracy is going to be rolled in through a Trojan horse. And I think that's why the woke agenda is sort of being dismantled. So this is just another piece of the puzzle. And though I do agree transgender people should not be in the military, I don't believe that they are mentally equipped to be. It's part of the dismantling of the woke agenda. So the order reinstates a policy from Trump's first term that prohibited trans people from enlisting and barred those already in the military from transitioning. He signed 4 executive orders pertaining to the military on Monday of this week, including one barring transgender people from enlisting and serving openly, and another one cracking down on diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives in the armed services. The order pertaining to transgender military service, titled Prioritizing Military Excellence and Readiness, reinstates a policy from Trump's first term and rescinds an order by then President Joe Biden that allowed trans people to enlist and permitted already enlisted trans service members to receive coverage for transition-related medical care. The order mandates that the Defense Department update its military medical standards within 60 days promptly. And invented an identification-based pronoun usage. We're going to start to see the end of that, I think, too. The order will take time to implement, so transgender service members will not be immediately ejected. So that's that. And yeah, I think that there's this movement happening that makes the right appear to be counterculture. And 4 years ago, I actually thought that was going to be the case, but it's really not. Now the right is totally a Trojan horse for the technocracy, and it becomes more and more evident every single day. So that's what I have for this week, and I will see you next week. How's everything been going?
It's going terrible, if you want to know.
Why?
Looks like I won't be joining the military anytime soon.
Really? Why?
Because that pompous jaundiced butterball's back in office.
You know what I'm really worried about? Him rolling out this digital infrastructure.
I think Americans should just stop paying their taxes.
Well, Trump may actually do away with the income tax, and then Americans won't be able to push back anymore by not paying their taxes. So there's that. Plus, if AI takes over all the jobs, there's no income. What's the point of an income tax? The whole goal is to put everybody on universal basic income.
Great.